There is a period every year that most people pass through without noticing, not because it is unimportant, but because it does not announce itself in a way the modern world recognizes. It is not dramatic, it does not promise instant transformation, and it does not try to overwhelm you with information. Instead, it offers something that is much quieter and, for many sensitive or neurodivergent nervous systems, much more useful. It offers sequence over time. This period is called the Omer. It is a 49-day cycle that begins after Passover and leads toward Shavuot, and in 2026 it started on April 2nd and continues for 7 weeks. Traditionally, each day is counted individually, not symbolically, but literally, one day at a time, and this detail matters more than it might seem at first, because the act of counting creates orientation. It turns time from something that feels diffuse and overwhelming into something structured and contained. For a nervous system that tends to experience everything at once, that alone can already be regulating. The deeper meaning of the Omer is often described in spiritual language, but underneath that language there is a very precise psychological structure. Passover represents a moment of release, of movement, of opening. Something shifts, something breaks open, something becomes possible again. But what follows an opening is not automatically stability. In fact, for many people, the moment after expansion is where overwhelm begins. The system has more energy, more input, more movement, but not yet the structure to hold it. The Omer is the period that addresses exactly this gap. It is not about the moment of change, but about what happens after the moment of change. It is a structured integration phase. For women with ADHD, for highly sensitive nervous systems, for minds that process quickly and deeply, this is often the missing piece. The issue is rarely that nothing happens. The issue is that things happen intensely and then cannot be sustained. There is a surge of clarity, a phase of motivation, a period of expansion, and then a collapse back into exhaustion or confusion. Not because you are incapable, but because the system was never given a sequence to stabilize what was opened. The Omer provides exactly that sequence. These 49 days are divided into 7 weeks, and each week represents a different quality of inner organization. This is not random. It is a progression that mirrors how stability is actually built. And instead of trying to apply everything at once, you move through these qualities step by step, allowing your nervous system to adjust gradually. The first week is centered around expansion. This is the phase where energy returns, where ideas begin to move again, where there is a sense of openness and possibility. In many ways, this aligns with the broader energetic atmosphere of early spring and the initiating quality often associated with Aries. There is movement, there is forward momentum, there is a natural impulse to begin. But this is also where many people lose stability very quickly, because expansion without direction turns into overstimulation, too many ideas, too many decisions, too many open loops. The work of this first week is not to amplify everything that appears, but to choose consciously where your energy goes. Not to suppress movement, but to give it direction. A practical way to work with this is to limit your focus to 1 or 2 meaningful priorities per day and allow your energy to move there fully instead of fragmenting across 10 different directions. The second week introduces boundaries. After expansion, the system needs containment. This is where you begin to reduce input deliberately, not because the world is too much, but because your system needs space to process what has already entered. Boundaries in this context are not restrictive in a negative sense, they are stabilizing. They create the conditions under which something can be held and integrated. This might look like limiting noise, reducing unnecessary conversations, setting clearer start and stop times for your day, or becoming more selective about what you engage with. For many neurodivergent systems, this week is particularly important because it challenges the pattern of saying yes to everything that feels interesting in the moment. The guiding question here becomes very simple and very precise. What needs to be limited so that what matters can actually be sustained? The third week moves into balance. At this point, you are no longer only opening and no longer only restricting. You begin to adjust dynamically. This is often where discomfort appears because the nervous system tends to prefer clear extremes. Either everything is open or everything is controlled. Balance requires a different skill. It requires responsiveness. It asks you to notice what is needed in the moment rather than applying a fixed rule. Some situations require more openness, others require more structure, and the ability to sense the difference is what creates real stability. During this week, the focus shifts toward observing your own patterns and making small adjustments in real time. Instead of asking what the perfect routine looks like, you begin asking what is appropriate for this moment. The fourth week introduces consistency. This is where the process becomes quieter and more grounded. There is less emphasis on change and more emphasis on repetition. Not repetition in a rigid sense, but in a stabilizing sense. Small actions, done consistently, begin to build trust in the nervous system. This is where you move away from intensity and toward continuity. Instead of starting new things, you maintain what is already working. This might be a simple morning structure, a daily walk, a consistent way of closing your day. The key is not the complexity of the action, but the reliability of it. For many people, this phase feels less exciting, but it is also where real regulation begins to take root. The fifth week shifts into reflection. After several weeks of movement, structure, and repetition, the system becomes more capable of observing itself. This is not about analyzing everything or creating more mental activity. It is about noticing patterns with a certain degree of neutrality. You begin to see what consistently drains you, what consistently supports you, where you tend to overextend and where you withdraw too quickly. This awareness creates space for more precise adjustments. Instead of reacting automatically, you begin to respond more consciously. A useful way to engage with this week is through brief daily reflection, not in a heavy or time-consuming way, but in a simple check-in that allows you to see what is actually happening rather than what you assume is happening. The sixth week focuses on connection. By this point, the internal structure has become more stable, and the question shifts toward how this stability interacts with your environment. This includes the people you spend time with, the spaces you move through, and the routines that shape your day. Connection here is not about increasing social interaction, but about improving the quality of your interactions. It is about recognizing which environments support your nervous system and which ones create fragmentation. It is about choosing connection more deliberately. This week often brings clarity around relationships and environments that either support or disrupt your stability. The 7th week moves into embodiment. This is where the process becomes tangible. The adjustments you have made over the previous weeks begin to show up in your daily life without as much effort. You are not trying to implement something new, you are living differently. Your routines may feel simpler, your decisions clearer, your internal state more stable. There is less need to constantly correct or manage yourself because the structure has begun to internalize. This is not a dramatic transformation, but it is a real one. It is the point where change becomes part of how you move through the world. When you look at this sequence as a whole, it becomes clear that this is not a random set of ideas. It is a progression that mirrors how regulation and integration actually happen. First there is opening, then containment, then adjustment, then repetition, then awareness, then relational clarity, and finally embodiment. This is how something becomes stable over time. To use this in a practical way, you do not need to follow every traditional detail. You can work with a very simple structure. Each week, take the theme as your focus and allow it to guide your attention. Then, each day, return to a short check-in. Where am I currently too open? Where am I currently too restricted? And what is one small adjustment I can make today? These adjustments do not need to be dramatic. In fact, they are more effective when they are small. Reducing input for a period of time, stepping outside, setting a boundary, allowing a moment of movement. These are the kinds of shifts that accumulate over time. And maybe the deepest thing about the Omer is this: it does not confuse freedom with readiness. Passover begins the story by leaving constriction, but leaving is not the same as integrating. A door can open before a person knows how to walk through it steadily. The Omer honors that middle, the sacred middle, the unglamorous middle, the necessary middle, the time in which your system slowly becomes capable of holding what it says it wants. That is why this season is so valuable. Not because it promises instant change, but because it respects process, it respects sequence, it respects the fact that some of the most meaningful shifts in life are built day by day with very little spectacle until one day you realize that your inner structure has become stronger than the chaos around you. If this period speaks to you, you do not need to use it perfectly. You do not need to know every Hebrew term. You do not need to perform spirituality beautifully. You only need to let time become intentional. You only need to let these 49 days ask something of you. A little more clarity, a little more honesty, a little more structure, a little more embodiment. That is enough. And if you want, this can become a very gentle but very real practice. For the next 7 weeks, let each day be counted. Let each week have a theme, and let your nervous system experience something it may rarely receive in the modern world. Not more stimulation, but meaningful sequence. Not more intensity, but sacred structure. If you'd like a simple guide to follow during these 49 days, you'll find it in the caption below. It walks you through each week and helps you apply this in a way that actually supports your nervous system. And if you want more of this kind of structure, a calmer, more grounded way of living and working with your mind, you can subscribe. This space is designed for that.